Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another Rookie Card Collector 123 video. In today's episode, I'm going to show you the rarest cards in my PC. For the most part, these are going to be all low pop cards. I think just about every one of them is going to be under 10 as far as graded population. There might be a couple that are a few more than that, but for the most part, the toughest cards to find that I have currently in my personal collection. So without further ado, let me pull up the first one. And this one is going to be the 1922 W575-2 Babe Ruth. These are also known as the autograph on shoulder baseball strip card set. So these are categorized under the W label, which Jefferson Burdick used for primarily for strip cards. There's a few other miscellaneous cards that are cataloged under the W title, but the vast majority are strip cards, mostly from the 1920s. But there's a couple of sets that run toward the end of the 19-teens and also into the early 1930s as well. So the Babe Ruth is I guess you would say, the crown jewel of the W575-2 set. One of the best looking, in my opinion, and also one of the toughest to find strip cards. This one has an actual image of the Babe follow through on a swing. Many of the strip cards are cartoonish type drawings, which I don't really particularly care for myself. I don't really have any of those in my collection right now. Over the years, I did own a couple. I owned a couple of the big head strip cards that used to be dated 1916 to 20. And more recent information has pushed those dates back actually about 3 years. So they are currently believed to be more like 1919 to 1921. But this one's from 22, Babe Ruth. The population on these, I didn't look up exact numbers on all these, but I would say probably not a lot more than 10 copies out there. This one's a PSA 4 MK, and I do not think I was ever able to locate where the mark was. So I'm guessing it's probably one of those cards that maybe at some point had a pencil mark or an ink dot or something, and somehow somebody was able to get it off the card or whatever, but maybe there's an indentation or something still left from it. So PSA picked that up and labeled it as an MK, like a mark on the card, although I don't see anything. Okay. Moving on to the second card. I believe I've got a total of 14 rarities I'm going to show today, so this will be number 2 coming up. Okay. This one is my only other that's going to picture Babe Ruth on it. You can see there's 2 players here. This one is Babe Ruth and Rogers Hornsby. And this photo was taken at the 1926 World Series between the New York Yankees and the St. Louis Cardinals, the 2 teams that met that year in the Classic, and was put out by Trinidad EO Cigars, which was a company out of Cuba. So they printed about 10 or 12 premiums picturing American baseball players from that 26 season. They put the set out in 27 the following year. And these are roughly about 8 by 10 or so they're very much oversized. I tried to submit this one to PSA as there's been documented sales about maybe 6 or so sales of this particular premium and a couple of the others as well from auction houses, etc. And PSA, because it's not cataloged in the standard catalog of vintage baseball cards, even though I provided I thought, more than ample research and documentation. They still held off on putting this in a holder. So anyway, it's obviously authentic. The backs of these are blank. And of course, two of the greatest dead ball era hitters of their generation, Ruth and Hornsby. Okay, going to move on to item number 3. And this one is going to be one of the earliest Cy Young items that exists. This is obviously another oversized piece. This is the 1899 M101-1 is the American Card Catalog designation. And it's put out by the Sporting News, and it's a supplement to their newspaper from 1899. It actually has the date on the top, the exact date that the issue came out. Underneath the portrait of Cy Young, it's got his name and position and team on the bottom. And this one's graded by Beckett as a 1.5. I believe this is the highest graded. There's a couple of ones and a couple of authentics. Beckett is the only company, I believe. I don't think these fit in PSA's holder unless they've been trimmed, in which case they should only get an authentic grade at best. And I would not recommend trimming them just to get it into the PSA holder. If you have any of these, I would go with Beckett and submit to them. CGC has been making a lot of progress as far as oversized holders, and I'm not sure at this moment if they have something possibly that might encapsulate this size item. These are about 8.5 by 11. So they're even bigger than the Sporting News supplements, the M101-2s, which are much more common than these M101-1s. They came out over 2 years, 1899 and 1900. And it's easy to pinpoint which came from which year because they're all dated with the exact issue date at the top of the supplement. Unfortunately, many of these were trimmed because they were so large, probably by collectors back in the early turn of the century. And some of them have the Sporting News date and all at the top, and even the name at the bottom trimmed off of it. So makes it obviously it's an authentic trimmed piece. I have seen a couple in Beckett holders. They tend to be willing to encapsulate them and just labeling them authentic and altered. This set here shares many of the same images with the 1898 to 1899 National Copper Plate series. The photographer that took the pictures for the National Copper Plate was the same photography that was used to create these Sporting News supplements from a year later. This one I picked up in a recent REA auction. The first Babe Ruth I showed, the W575, that was an eBay purchase from a couple of years ago before the market got quite as crazy as what it is now. And the Ruth and Hornsby premium from Cuba was from a small auction house purchase also a few years back. Okay, we're going to move on to the next item, item number 4. And this one is going to be, I've kind of got these in pairs. In a lot of cases, I'll have two of the same player, 2 different items. And I'm only going to show a handful of players today, different players. But like I said, many of the ones I'm going to show have 2 items per player. This is our second Cy Young after the 2 Babe Ruths. This one is a W600 Sporting Life cabinet. These were mail-in with coupons that were advertised in the Sporting Life newspaper. You sent it in, and you had a choice. They came out in different series, and you had a choice of players you can select from. So obviously, most people would choose the bigger stars from that day, like Cy Young and Honus Wagner. So there's actually population numbers tend to be higher for the biggest name guys when it comes to these W600 cabinets. And the more obscure players are the ones that are nearly impossible to find. And that's important when it comes to somebody who's trying to put a set of these together, which is probably an impossibility or a near impossibility, I would say. I only know a couple of people that are even attempted to try to work on a set of these. And there's hundreds of examples. Each player, if they came out in the initial 1902 release, there's 4 different types that were put out over the years. One was 02, one was 03, one was like the end of 03, beginning of 04, and then the last type was in 1906. And they all have different advertising at the bottom of the mount underneath the player image and underneath the player name and team. The Sporting Life ad on the bottom is different on all 4 of the types. So this Cy Young I actually picked up at the National last year in 2025. Fortunately for me, I had a very good year as far as sales at the National, and I was able to use funds from what I sold there to pick up this and one other pretty big item. Those are my 2 major pickups from last year's National. Okay, item number 5. And this one I showed in my collection already once. This is a more recent pickup. It was also in my Hall of Fame rookie card video, as it's a Collins rookie era caramel card. This one is the 1909 E92 Naja Caramel. Picturing Collins. The same image was used on a number of different caramel cards primarily with the green background, which matches the A's jersey, the letter on the jersey. And this is one of the I would say 2 scarcest Eddie Collins advertising backs. The Naja Caramel, it's E92. It's the American card designation, American card catalog designation. I believe there's only 3 of these in the Pop Report. And this one is the highest graded currently. Like I said, this was another eBay pickup from last year, 2025. Okay, card number 6. This is actually my most recent pickup. I saw it on eBay and recognized the seller being a Net54 baseball board member. If you recall my last video, I did one on Net54 baseball, the benefits of becoming a member. It's an online forum and very popular with especially pre-war vintage baseball card collectors. So was able to make a deal off of eBay for this one, and it's a George Sisler. It's the M101-5, so it's the earlier of the 2 Sporting News sets. The M101-5 came out first, and the M101-4 came out later in 1916, both issued during the same year. This one's a blank back, so it's normally just referred to as the Sporting News George Sisler, but actually does not have a Sporting News back. It's just blank. This one I liked also because it shows him in the bottom of the card under his name. It labels him as a pitcher, which was the earliest position he was at when he came up to St. Louis, the Browns. And later on, when the second half of the year, 1916, when the M101-4 came out, he's listed as a first baseman, which would have been his position just about the rest of his career. So one of the greatest hitters of the dead ball era, and then beyond into the 20s when offense started to become more plentiful. But one of the best out there, George Sisler. And this one's graded an SGC 4. It's a very sharp card. It's in an old SGC label. It's kind of borderline whether today that would get a 4 because of the left to right centering. But all the other aspects of the card are strong. I would say strong for a 4. Okay, next one we're going to look at here is, this one's actually a 1 of 1. This is a 1910 E-UNC, which means it's uncatalogued card, and the E means it's a caramel set. So it's basically another one of those cards that was cut from a candy box. And all those tend to be very rare and scarce. And if you're ever lucky enough to find one that still has the candy box attached, that's a super rarity and definitely something to consider picking up if you're able to afford it. But this one, as far as I know, it's listed only once on SGC and nothing on the PSA pop report. So I believe it's a 1 of 1. There's a matching card, exact same image to this, also graded from the same set, 1910 E-UNC caramel candy, Hannes Wagner. And that one is in red instead of blue. And I know the individual who owns the red one. I've been trying to acquire it from him for a little while now. Hopefully I will at some point. But the red is also a 1 of 1. So by definition, I guess you could say this is the rarest card in my collection. And of course, Hannes Wagner, not a bad guy to have a rarity like that. This was an eBay buy it now purchase 2 or 3 years ago. Okay, next up we're going to do keeping up with what I said earlier. This is going to be another player with a pair of cards here. This is Wagner again. And this one is another candy card that was cut from a candy box. And another rarity, I think the population on this one is somewhere around 8 or so. And this is the 1910 orange borders. For the obvious reason, the borders around the image are orange. And these tend to be cut a lot of times right down to the photo where you don't see the orange border at all. And if that's the case, the grading companies will only give them authentics. This one actually got a numerical grade, which is a 1.5, and it's a pretty clean cut. The top and bottom borders are a little tight, and the sides are nice, and it's not exactly perfect, but really happy to own this one. These are a very popular set. The beginning of 2026, January, February, there was a major auction that sold almost a complete set of these as individual single cards. And Wagner, there was a Wagner in there. It was, I think, slightly nicer than this one. I think it might have been a 2. And the buyer of that one basically upgraded their set by picking up the slightly higher grade Wagner and had this one available. And when I heard about it, I immediately reached out to them and was able to work out a deal and pick this one up. And this one actually, the buyer, also Net54 guy, brought it to me in Strongsville where I was set up at my booth there and paid for it. And he handed me the card in Ohio. So that made it a little more special. It was the first time I ever met him in person as well. Okay, next up is going to be, this is Snap Napoleon Lajoie. And I showed this once before. It was a more recent pickup. This population on this one, I believe, is another 1 of 1. This is another card that was cut from a candy box. This is the 1912 J equals K Candy is the name of the set. And this is Nap Lajoie in his Cleveland uniform. Makes a notation hand cut on the grading label. This one got a 1.5, which is actually a high grade for this set. Almost every card I've seen gets either an authentic or a 1, and they're usually pretty heavily creased in the 1 grade level. So this one, you can see the die cut around the head. And if you looked at it up close, so you had the card in hand, there's actually a crease that goes across the forehead right where the rest of the card falls, or basically where his head sticks out above the rest of the card. And every one of these die cuts that still has the forehead attached, some of them actually have it missing. Those that still have it attached, there's always a crease in that spot. So people would fold the head either forward or backward behind the rest of the card to keep it intact and to keep it from tearing off, I guess. And this one's graded as, like I said, SGC 1.5, high grade for this set. This is a type 1. The type 1s were in color, and the type 2s were in black and white. Of course, the color image is the more desirable one. I believe there's one Lajoie in black and white, which is the type 2, and there's this one in color, and that's it. So another super rarity, one of a kind, I would say. This one was an eBay purchase while I was in Strongsville this year in 2026. Okay. And in keeping with our theme of having 2 cards per player, this is a second Nap Lajoie. And this one is also super rare, Texas Tommy, 1914. This was it's a gum or candy card, and put out by Picturing Lajoie. This one, again, is a type 1. There's a type 1 and a type 2. This is the only type 1 ever graded, as far as I know. This was a 1.5 from SGC. And this is one I saw on eBay, and it was put on there by Dean's Cards, I believe, who's a big commercial seller on eBay. They also have their own website. So when I saw it on eBay and I saw who it was, I went to their website. And typically you can get about 10 to 15%, occasionally 20% if they're running some sort of a sale. And I got a nice discount as compared to the eBay price. And knowing how rare these Texas Tommies are, I jumped at it and went ahead and picked up this Lajoie. Looks to be in really nice shape for a 1.5. Obviously, the centering is off. Okay, moving on. We got a few more left here. Looks like we got 4 more. So this is another super rare one, not quite as rare as the last couple that were one of a kind. This is the 1917 to 1920 Felix Mendelssohn. These are oversized cards, a little bigger than postcard size. And this is Rogers Hornsby. And the reason I love this one, number one, it's a super nice copy. Most of the Mendelssohns you'll find are either authentics or 1s. This one's a SGC 3, and probably a superior example for a 3. Population on this one, I think, is around 6 to 8, somewhere in that range, between 6 and 8 copies. This one I picked up at a Philly show from William Chappell, one of my good friends in the hobby for many years, known through Net 54 baseball. And this one I especially like because the 1917 to 20 time frame matches the 1917 Hornsby rookie year issue, where he had cards that were put out by Collins McCarthy, Boston Store, Wheel Baking, and Standard Biscuit. So another rookie card option for Hornsby, this 1917 Felix Mendelssohn. Okay, moving on to the next one. So here we have a 1907. Actually, it's not 1907. I'll explain in a minute. But it looks like 1907 Deitch postcards. They made a series of Detroit Tiger players from those 3 years, 1907, 08, 09, the Tigers team that went to the World Series 3 times and unfortunately lost all 3 of the series. So the Deitch postcard of Cobb, commonly attributed to 1907, and it's dated 1907 on the back. So that all makes sense. There's been several of them that were found with postmarks that said 1907. The one I have here is a variation, a very rare variation. And I don't know how well you can see it in the picture on the screen here, but in the dirt area between his legs on the ground, sort of right where the shadow is, there's his name, Cobb, C-O-B-B, in white letters, and it's a very light gray background. So the white letters on the light gray background do not show up the best. But this labeling of Cobb there, the regular Deitch postcards do not have that. And the reason why this particular one does have it is they reissued these in 1908, and they made many more from 07, and they had a lot left over that they continued to put out through 1908 and even into 1909. But in 1908, there was a couple of players or a few players that they ran out of supply, I guess. And of course, Cobb probably would be the most popular one. So they produced a Cobb again in 1908. But when they did that, they added his name in white font, like I said, on the bottom. And there's very few of these. The grading companies usually don't differentiate them on the label. This one does not. But to the best of my knowledge, I know of probably somewhere around 4 to 6 copies with the Cobb name printed on the bottom, as compared to the regular without the Cobb on bottom. Those are in the 70s, I believe, the Pop report. So extremely large difference in rarity between this one, which is a 1908, and the other 1907s. This was a trade with a Net 54 board member pretty recently. I had a little nicer SGC2. This one you can see has a couple of creases, not the greatest condition. But I had a nice, really nice SGC2. And for his purposes, for resale, he thought it would be easier for him to sell my copy. And in turn, I already had another example of the 1907 Deitch. So the 2 I had was a duplicate. And I did not have this rarity, the 1908 version with the Cobb on it. So we agreed to just make a straight up trade, one for the other. And he was happy with it. I was happy with it. And I think worked out great for both of us. Okay, getting down to the end now. I think we've got 2 left. And once again, we're going to have our second card of the same player. I just showed you Ty Cobb. So this is another Cobb, another rare one. This is used to be labeled 1907. The date has since been pinned down to 1909 or 1910. So 2 or 3 years later. This is another one of those candy box cards that were cut from a box. This one, whoever cut it, made certain that the dotted lines surrounding the photo were all visible, which is great in terms of grading in today's grading world, because this one got a numerical grade. Many of these get either an authentic or a 1. And typically don't have any of those black lines that the grading companies look for. So this one actually graded in SGC4, which is a nice, really nice grade for the issue here. And the population on these is somewhere just under 10, I believe. These very rarely come up for sale. This copy I picked up, I think I picked it up on eBay as a buy it now, maybe in the last year or two. Even though I've said it's cut from a candy box, it's labeled as a 1907, which is wrong, W555. So even though it has the W designation, it's not a strip card. It came from a candy box. There's actually been several examples of the full candy boxes from this issue, and you can see the Cobb card is attached to the box of candy. So we know that for certain. Okay, we're down to our last one for this video today, and we're at 30 minutes, so good timing here. Hope you stuck with us through the end. And the last one is going to be a single card of a single player. I don't have a pair of this guy. And this one is 1912 Boston American postcard of Tris Speaker. Population on this one is somewhere in the 8 to 10 range, I think. It's got the typical postcard back. They made 5 different Boston players from 1912 on these postcards, and a nice batting image of Speaker here. This one's an SGC1, and this was a pickup at the National 2 years ago, I believe, when I was walking around. One of the few things I picked up as a buyer, even though I was there set up selling. So that's going to wrap up today's video. I hope you enjoyed all the cards and the rare opportunity to look at some of these even one of ones where there's only one example known, as well as a bunch of other rarities that were very low pop as well. So hope you enjoyed today's video. Have a great day, and I'll catch you guys again on the next one.